Markie here. So welcome to the video. If you're new to the channel or if you're a subscriber, thank you for all your support. This is the retroactive jealousy channel that doesn't always talk about just retroactive jealousy, and today's video is a good example of where we talk about other topics, but it still relates to psychotherapy. And I'm going to talk a bit more about baby reindeer. Now, if you haven't heard of baby reindeer, you've probably been under a rock or something. Everyone's kind of going a bit crazy about it, rightfully so, I think, because it's a very good piece of drama, and you know, strikes a lot of chords and pushes a lot of buttons for a lot of people. I think lots of nuance in it, lots of grey areas, very psychologically nuanced, which is rare. You know, a lot of dramas are very two-dimensional, but this one isn't, which I think is, you know, one of the reasons why it's gaining so much interest. And I wanted to talk about, because not only am I a psychotherapist, but I'm a comedian, stand-up comedian, a rusty one because I haven't done it for a good while for various reasons, COVID being one of them. There will be people coming past. I'm on a coastal walkway, so there will be people, bikes and people whizzing by, so don't be alarmed. Don't want that to shock you out of your reverie, because obviously it's a lovely view, isn't it? Hopefully you can enjoy the view as well as listen to the video. So the other thing to say really is I've been away for a little while, apart from a video that I did with Gwendoline the other day, which is also about baby reindeer and the psychological aspects of it, but focused on the character of Darian. I've not been well. I'm pretty much recovered. I'm lacking in fitness. I've got to catch up on fitness, and I have a lingering cough, which actually went away yesterday and has returned today, which is really annoying. So I may cough at some point. Nearly did then, didn't I? Hopefully not too much. The shaky camera is a trademark of this channel. We have absolutely no production value, and we are all content and no style. So there we go. So yeah, stand-up comedian. I've always been interested in the psychology of comedy. It absolutely fascinates me. I've done other videos on this, and there's a lot to say about the psychology of comedy, but there's also a lot to say about the psychology of comedians. I don't think there's any research data to back up some of my observations and theories, but I'm going to share some of my thoughts with you around comedians and psychology, because it's very interesting. And I think I probably would have gone a lot further with comedy, because I'm not actively pursuing it now, had I had slightly different psychological conditions. So I think being a comedian is always enhanced by being a bit fucked up in one way or another. And people who I think are well adjusted, who are, you know, with secure attachment, who've, you know, had a good upbringing, and, you know, feel, you know, confident and successful in life, are unlikely to become good comedians. I think most comedians are tormented or troubled in some way, and very commonly, I would say, they have ADHD. Okay, now I've talked about ADHD in a lot of other videos. There's lots of myths about ADHD. I'm not going to go into all of those here, but I will say that when I write the letters ADHD, I usually put the H in brackets, okay, because there are actually 3 kinds of ADHD, and the hyperactive kind is only one of them. Okay, so the other type is what we call inattentive, which is me. I have inattentive ADHD, which means I was the kid at school that was always drifting off into daydreams and not paying attention or following what was being taught by the teacher. And usually I didn't know what was going on. I was always a bit kind of confused and baffled. Never remembered what the homework was. Always used to phone somebody to find out what the homework was. That was me at school. So an ADHD, the people with inattentive ADHD tend to get overlooked because they don't cause any trouble, but the ones with the hyperactive aspect of ADHD, they don't get overlooked because they're very difficult to overlook. They often get into a lot of trouble, and also they're more likely to get help. But anyway, that's by the by. One of the I mean, there's a number of kind of quite subtle things about ADHD which can be very helpful when it comes to being a comedian. And ADHD, I always look at it as part of a package, if you like, of other conditions which are very similar, and often people will have a bunch of them. If you've got ADHD, you're quite likely to have other conditions, and commonly it's things like dyslexia and autism. So I have a bunch of things. I have autism, and I also have dyspraxia and dyscalculia, which is the numeric form of dyslexia, if you like. There's difficulty with numbers and sequences, things like that. So people that have these conditions often see the world very differently to what they call neurotypical people, or holistic people. Holistic means you don't have autism, and neurotypical means you're not neurodivergent. It means you've got a normal nervous system, whatever that means. But it means you don't have those conditions that I've talked about, or other related ones. So, and it's interesting because a lot of New Age theory and beliefs, where they talk about indigo children and this kind of thing, and star people or starseed children. I know Doreen Virtue wrote a book, and I can't remember the title of it now. It was a little tiny book, and it was kind of identified 4 kind of types, spiritual types of person, and they were, I can't remember, I think star person was one of them, the other one was like a kind of fae or pixie fairy type person, and you do this questionnaire and it would tell you what you are. And I did the questionnaire, and even though I was very cynical and skeptical is the word about the book, I did the questionnaire because I like to look into things that I'm not into sometimes, or explore beliefs and theories and ideas that I don't agree with. It's good for the brain. So and I scored as having all of these things, which is interesting. But one of the key kind of criteria for or criterion for kind of filling in the questionnaire so that you match these kind of wacky subtypes is a feeling of being different, not belonging. And that is the classic thing for people with neurodivergence. Okay, so we feel like we don't quite belong. We feel like cuckoos in the nest. We're the ugly ducklings. Some of us grow up to be swans, and some of us don't. Some of us grow up to just be ugly ducks. We don't fit in often, and we feel like we're not like our parents sometimes, or like the rest of our family, and we feel like we're aliens, that was the other category in the Doreen Virtue book. So, I think Doreen Virtue was just basically picking up on attributes of neurodivergence and packaging them in a new age way. I don't actually hold with that belief. I'm not averse to the idea of past lives and how past lives might influence us, but I think that's something that we, in this case, we can't really get a grip on. We'll never really find out that stuff, or it's unlikely that we'll find out that stuff. It's more likely that it's just autism, it's just ADHD, or whatever it might be. Sorry to be so non-romantic in that sense. Kills all the fun of it, doesn't it, really? But So, and this does relate to comedy. This might sound like a tangent, and I do like a good tangent, but this isn't really one of them. This is just to illustrate how people with ADHD and autism and some of the other conditions feel very different, feel like they don't belong, and therefore they also think very differently and see the world in very different ways. Often we don't buy into the same conventions and habits and traditions that a lot of neurotypical people do. We kind of look at things from the outside. We look at things kind of sideways, if you like. So that is a great recipe for being a comedian, because often comedy is about the absurd, or it's about seeing the absurd in day-to-day things, and comedy is definitely about looking at things differently. I've done a video about what makes something funny, what makes a joke, and it very much is about that, but do check out the video because it's good. And I've got a short series on comedy. I've got tips for comedians, and also I can't remember what I've talked about, but I think I've talked a little bit about this in at least one video. So that's the first thing. So ADHD can help you with material, if you like. Also makes you often more of a quirky personality, and that can help, because there's kind of according to who you talk to in terms of like comedy schools of comedy, there are three things that make up a stand-up comedian, or three things that a stand-up comedian needs to have. One is material, the other is attitude, and the other is persona. Although you could actually just mix attitude and persona together and call them shtick. What's your shtick? So that's great, So does Donny have ADHD? Well, I think he probably does. Now, I'm not going to talk about Richard Gadd, because I don't really know Richard Gadd, but we can talk about Donny. And I think Donny does have ADHD, and it might be inattentive ADHD, or it might be hyperactive, or it might be the combined type. I don't know. I wouldn't go as far as to sort of nailing down which one, but I think he does. And one of the reasons why I think he does is crucial, really, to the whole premise of the series. So in a way, what I've just described, if you like, a positive of ADHD is seeing the world in a different way. So you can, you're going to be creative, you're going to be more funny, you're going to be more tuned into the absurd, because you're going to see the absurd more than neurotypical people do in day-to-day things. But the downside of ADHD is low dopamine. Okay, so it's not low dopamine, but I don't want to get too much into the science of this. So basically, there aren't enough. There are fewer than normal dopamine receptors in the brain. Okay, so we don't feel, and dopamine is what makes you motivated. Dopamine is what makes you do things, and it makes you feel good as well. So often we feel a bit crap, we feel a bit unmotivated, we feel a bit flat. And what we sometimes do, either deliberately or unconsciously, is we look for extremes of everything, really. Extremes of, in terms of maybe things that we do. We want to bungee jump, or our interests might be more unusual. So, for example, my interests are all really wacky. If you look at my YouTube kind of watch list, or history list, I watch stuff on all kinds of things. I watch stuff on, even stuff I don't really believe in, but I kind of just find interesting. So I watch loads of stuff on cryptozoology and paranormal and UFOs. I've done videos on some of that stuff as well. And if I listen to music, I don't want to listen. I can't be doing with kind of easy listening, middle of the road pop. It just doesn't do anything for me. I either want, I quite like a lot of heavy rock. and I quite like a lot of classical, you know, but don't give me anything bland, you know. Just won't work. Or if I read a novel, I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna read some, you know, boring novel about, you know, just some normal everyday geezer that doesn't really do very much. I'm you know, I want something epic, you know. So, you know, that's why I'll go into like speculative fiction, like horror, science fiction, fantasy, that kind of thing, or classics. Quite often get into classics, but the point I'm making is, and I'm using myself as an example for this. I mean, a lot of the things that I do to get the dopamine are kind of quite healthy, or they're certainly not unhealthy. But I can also, I'm not beyond doing unhealthy things to get dopamine. So I can actually get into disputes and arguments with people that I don't really need to, because what happens is when, you know, when the anger starts to rise, and the argument starts to brew, it makes me feel alive, where, you know, I'm probably feeling quite dead and flat before. So, you know, take somebody with ADHD on a, you know, a lovely picnic somewhere in the countryside, nice and quiet. We might actually find that quite difficult, even though, you know, yeah, great, but we might start an argument with you just to raise our dopamine levels, because it's not enough to give us the increase in the dopamine. So therefore, so what's this got to do with Donny Dunn? Well, look at what he does. Look at the situations that he gets himself into, and the people that he brings into his life. Now, I'm not one for victim blaming, okay? It doesn't mean that if you've got ADHD and you attract into your life, or you keep in your life somebody that's abusive, that makes you know, that makes it okay, and that it's your fault and it's not the fault of the abusive person. As I said in other videos, with abuse, the only person responsible for abuse is the abuser. So I'm not victim blaming, but what I am saying is that sometimes we will put ourselves, ADHDers, adders as they're sometimes called, will put themselves into situations that are dangerous or just extreme. And if you think about somebody like Martha, and again, I'm talking about the character of Martha, not the real person Fiona, because I don't know the real person Fiona. I would, you know, she will give you the emotional roller coaster that someone with ADHD craves, because you never know quite what you're going to get. Okay, and it's interesting that the character of Donny pokes the bear on a number of occasions. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I said I might cough. You know, when he doesn't, you know, when it's all gone quiet with Martha and not much is going on, he goes to find her. So the phrase "poke the bear." So the bear, you know, the bear is sleeping, not bothering you. So you poke it. And ADHD is a bear poking condition, I would say. And the same with Darian. You know, Darian is abusive, but he's also seductive. He also brings, you know, lots of goodies in the form of substances. People with ADHD, they're massively more likely to actually develop a problem with substances for this same reason. Also, people with ADHD have a significantly higher level of this is, you know, not individuals I'm talking about here, I'm talking about statistically. There's a much higher incidence of sexually transmitted infections among people with ADHD, and again, the belief behind that is the excitement from the risk taking. Okay, so we're risk takers, we don't like the boring, so sometimes we'll even go for the harmful or the dangerous just to avoid the boring. So I think there's a very strong chance that Donny Dunn has ADHD. Now, narcissism is another factor that comes into comedy, and actually it's a fantastic job for a narcissist. Now, by a narcissist, I don't mean just somebody that takes a lot of selfies. I mean, and thinks that they're pretty. I mean somebody that's got narcissistic personality disorder, and I'm not going to go too much into that now because I need to wrap up the video fairly shortly. But narcissists have this grandiose, and I'm talking about clinical narcissists here, have a grandiose, you know, sense of self-belief, and they think that everybody wants to listen to them. And that's really useful if you're a comedian. And one of the areas where I think I struggled is not having enough narcissism, not believing really that people want to listen to me. So it's a good career if you're a narcissist. I don't think Donny is narcissistic. There's no indications that I haven't watched all the episodes yet, to be honest. I've got 2 more to watch, but I don't think narcissism is part of the picture there, although it possibly is part of the picture for some of the other characters. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you. And at some point I think I'd like to do a video about my experiences of comedy. As well as being a comedian, I was a teacher as well, and a very good one, I think, even though I say so myself, and even though I say I'm not narcissistic. I had some great experiences and saw some amazing people really develop their sets, and you know, some go on to achieve some success. So yeah, we'll talk a bit more about that in another video if you're interested. So and check out the other stuff I've done on the psychology of comedy and the psychology of comedians, because it's fascinating. And I will see you soon. And I'm hoping, actually, my life circumstances have changed a little bit in good ways. My plan is actually to make much more content, but I've been a bit slow with being ill and then coughing, and I've just seen today my cough is still not gone away completely. So if I can throw that cough away, I want to give you lots and lots more content. Thank you for watching and listening, and all your support. Watching this video helps us get information about retroactive jealousy out to the people that need it, because more people find out about the work and the free support that we do for people with retroactive jealousy through this YouTube channel than any other platform currently. So just by watching this, you're helping us, so I really appreciate that, and we'll see you in the next one. Rangimarie.